Perfect. All right. So again, happy Tuesday, everyone. Happy Bootcamp Day. Today, we're going to go over the buyer consultation, one of the most important steps when you meet with a buyer, especially for the first time. I recently asked in our mastermind, some ideas, some suggestions from David, our broker, Alan, and some other agents, and they gave some things on what they do. A lot of what came out a lot was that it's very customizable and it's very based on the client. So before we go in on the details of what we suggest or kind of in a general overview of the buyer consultation, I wanted to fill out a little document together on why is it important to meet with a buyer. So no pressure, Vanity, Ivan, and Adam, but I'll need your participation. In your opinion, why is it important to meet with your buyer? So I'll kind of get started. One, to build rapport, right, was one of the main reasons. We really want the client to get to know you. The likability standpoint always gets brought up in any real estate conversation, is you have to have, build that connection with your clients. But how about you, Vanity? Why is it important to meet with your buyer prior to maybe viewing homes or anything else?
I would say just having that first conversation face to face. For us as realtors, we're able to see during that time if someone is serious, about wanting to take the next steps. I think it's easier that way over the phone, because of course, just having that conversation with them. Usually I say it's a half an hour, but because I talk a lot and I kind of befriend them a little, it's like an hour minimum. But, they're able to, I guess feel vibes too. So that's kind of when I really kind of like lock them in, is when I get to talk to them, get to know them, see what their motives are. Of course, we ask them all the questions, their time frames and all that stuff. But that's the time when I really try to get into a personal level with them and try to ask them questions to help me, determine on how I can help them and then what next steps need to happen.
Yeah, those are perfect. Sorry, I'm typing as I'm going. And you've met clients at the office, at coffee shops. I mean, which one's your favorite, or does it matter? As long do you customize it based on what they want or where they are?
Yeah, I mean, it's usually what they want, but if I had to suggest something, I usually suggest like a coffee shop near them, just so they know that I'll come to them. They don't have to. I mean, the office is far, so sometimes they don't want to drive all the way to the office. So I'm just like, you know what, I'll come to you. Like, let's have coffee, like, or even lunch.
Yep. All right. Thank you, Ms. Vanity.
Welcome.
How about you? How about you, Ivan? Why do you think, after kind of the multiple trainings you've been to, why do you think it's important to meet with the buyer in person?
I'd say you can discover more from a conversation than through digital, like text or email. There's different cues you can pick up and ask better questions based on what they say, and more personal questions, like Vanity said.
All right. Great, thank you. And have you met with any buyers? Have you hosted a buyer consultation?
Not a consultation, but I've had conversations during open houses, and then some in-person conversations when I meet other people, but not a like buyer consultation, I would say.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Ivan. And last but not least, Adam, how about you? Why do you think it's important to meet with a buyer?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
To get the real wants and needs and to kind of figure out like exactly what they're going for instead of just, kind of being vague about it.
Yep. Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah. Sometimes, especially when there are multiple people involved in the buying decision, it's very important to meet with everyone who is involved in the buying decision. Sometimes that includes other family members. So one little additional suggestion that I would say would be is to ensure that you have the true wants and needs from everyone, because you can be talking to me over the phone and I'm telling you this and this and that, and you're customizing the home search. We vibe and connected. And all of a sudden, my husband wants something completely different. And you're showing this houses and they can't agree on it. They hate it. And they're like, oh, she keeps on showing me the wrong houses, because you never really spoke to the husband, or vice versa. We've had in-laws that are the big decision makers, and you really want to ensure that you get the true wants and needs from it. So that's our realtor hat. That's why we want to meet with buyers. So make yourself a list to remember why is it important for you to meet a client. There are out-of-state buyers, so connecting with someone through Zoom is also extremely important, and you want to get to know how to and customize what we're going to go over, not only in a person format, but also in an in-person format. And we'll kind of dive into that in a little bit. So now we're going to put on the buyer hat. If you were the buyer, especially first-time home buyers, what would you want to get out of it? You know, at the end of the day, a lot of the times we have to ask ourselves, when we're trying to appease the other party, what's in it for them? What's in it for me as the buyer to, one, invest gas, energy, time to go? And I think let me get someone in. So now the question is, what's in it for the buyer? What is in it for me to go? So one, I'll kind of get the list started. I want to meet the realtor. So I'll use Vanity's example. I really liked her over the phone. She really listened to me, and she's wanting me to meet in person. So I do personally want to meet someone who's going to help me throughout the transition. And I don't want to be the first time being at a house. So I want to meet the realtor, So that would be in it for me. So we'll go back to you, Ms. Vanity. If you were the buyer, why would you want to meet with them if you were to agree to it? What's in it for you as the buyer?
I initially would want to meet with them just to see, how can I say, if they're like honest people and they're really, I want to say, I always say, like, let's meet so we can put a face to the voice, you know? Because I want people to see, like, I'm a real person. I'm really here trying to help you. You know, you're not going to get multiple agents, you know, just calling you and trying to help you through this transaction. It's going to be you and I, you know, so I like to just get close, you know, personal with them. And really, it's just so they can start to build that trust.
Oh, that's a good one. Okay.
Yeah, because I think once you start to build that trust, or at least, you know, have the foundation around trust, then the other things start to fall into place. You know, of course, listening to them, seeing what their needs are, and, you know, offering, you know, solutions to a lot of the problems that most of these buyers have right now. There's just so many steps, but I would say building the trust is the first thing.
All right, thank you. And I'm writing from the perspective of the buyer. So I want to meet my realtor. I want to put a face to a voice. I want to build that trust. I want to find solutions to my buying problems, especially right now, guys. You know, a lot of buyers out there are thinking it's the realtor. At one point, it gets to the point where it's like, I hate my realtor, they're not telling me the right houses. And then that new break comes down with the perimeters off, or vice versa. They don't respond fast enough. So I need someone who's going to respond fast. So that's where you start listening to what their opportunities were with their previous realtor or the current realtor that they're having with. And then you are going to start thinking of these things that you wrote down. So you do want to think about it from the from the buyer side perspective. And some of these words stay. So if I were to hit the phones after this call, after this moment, I would all of a sudden start thinking, like, you know, goal is to kind of meet, put a voice to a name, help build that trust. You know, I want to meet your husband who's part of the buying process. And then you start all of a sudden like spewing words that resonate with them as the buyer versus the real estate side of things. All right, how about you, Ivan? What would you want to get out of, why would you want to meet with your real estate agent for this buyer consultation? What's in it for you?
Well, aside from the ones mentioned, I'd say like what's the plan? Like what is their process look like? And what are some resources that they can provide that I wouldn't have access to elsewhere?
Ooh, those are good ones.
And I think that's like a big one, especially like first time home buyers. Because as a realtor, people, I when I was looking for a place, I found that some kind of assumed that I knew what was going on because they've been in the field for so long. So for new time buyers, I think showing them the process and the resources where they can learn along the way is very helpful too. Or perspective of the buyer, I would learn.
Yeah. Especially if you recently bought a house, or think about when you first purchased your home. It's just, what could they have done differently, or what did you like about that real estate agent? And you really have to dive in, and you can have a huge list. So the things that were important to you, you want to maybe stand out on, or if you think there's something missing out there. And this, even one alone, is what is the process of buying a home? You can do a video, you can do a reel. It gives you a lot of material to go off of. Thank you so much, Ivan. How about you, Adam?
Just would like to figure out if that realtor would listen to me, actually, like, not just try to sell, but actually listen, because I've been at a couple open houses where realtors came in and they just kind of bulldogged the client. So it was kind of weird.
That's a good one. That's a twist. Yeah, that's a really good one, because it's true. If you are going to meet with them again, make sure to reference your notes and reiterate when you and I, Adam, discussed your house, you're looking for this and that and this, and you have all the credentials. Is that kind of what you're still looking for, including a pool or no pool, all those little details? And that's a good one. Love that one. Thank you, Adam. Welcome, Michael. Good morning. The first two slides we were doing is putting our real estate hat and our buyer's hat. Right now we have a buyer hat on, and we want to kind of go over the reasons why we want to meet with the client. And in this one, from the buyer perspective, what do you think is in it for them? Why is it important for a buyer to meet with the client, and what would entice me to do so? In your opinion, what would be that reason?
Just to see if I have a connection with them, and to see whether or not they know what they're doing, see how professional they are, how much they know about the market, and if I can trust them.
All right, those are really good ones. Do they know what they're doing? All right.
Did I do something that was? Did you hear everything I said?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Got it. Sorry, my keyboard's lagging on me.
Oh, you're typing
but,
it. Okay, gotcha. All right.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Michael. All right. So now we kind of, thanks for bearing with me in regards to this little fun challenge. The goal right now was to go over why is it important to meet with the buyer. So if you're just joining, we just kind of went over some lists, build that list together, build your own list, get a scratch piece of paper and start writing it. Why is it important for me to meet my buyer? Boom. Why is it important for the buyer? Like, what's in it for the buyer, so that you always remember from the buyer perspective. To me, I'm obsessed with what the other perspective is. So if how can I appease the other client? And you have to get out of the business. You have to get a very non-biased standpoint and of your prospect, your client. So now we know the why. The why, as you all know, in every kind of book out there, it's very important to know the why behind why I do something. Every day when your goal as a real estate agent is to meet with clients. Statistically speaking, the statistic Alan used to use when I first joined was that you want to aim to book 2 appointments per day. So the reason you want to do that is 2 appointments per day, if you work 5 days a week, equals 10 appointments per week. Statistically, half of them are going to cancel or no show on you. So that gives you 5 appointments. Out of that 5 appointment, typically 1 or 2 of them will be ready to buy in the next 30 to 60 to 90 days. So that's where that ratio comes in. So again, every day, my goal is to engage in conversations, enough conversations to end up booking an appointment to meet with a buyer. or vice versa, sellers, right? But today we're talking all about buyers. It kind of, the math and the statistic changes based on the pillar you're focusing on. But even if you're meeting with a client in open house, if you're meeting them over the phone, whatever the case is, we teach and we coach and we preach the LP Mama script. The one thing you end up with at the end is always to book an appointment. So that's one of the things that when the A in LP Mama is appointment. Before I let you go, when's the last, even if it's like a hypothetical one, the number one objections are always gonna be like, I have to ask my spouse or I have to check my calendar. Let's just put like a tentative appointment. I currently have X, Y, and Z slots, and then look at your calendar. There's a whole script system behind that. But now we really know the why to do that. So really look into your math, really look into what you're doing on a daily basis to end up booking an appointment, at least 2 appointments a day. Nowadays, the room on the street has it. With the current market that we're in, you kind of have to do double. So if that was the statistic, maybe now I have to book 3 to 4 appointments, just so that I can end up getting some of the similar results. That's kind of where it's at the moment. And then it evolves and it changes. But if I were to kind of just give a suggestion, when I was doing this 100% full time, my goal every day was to book 2 appointments. I wouldn't end my prospecting time until I book those appointments. So whether that be an open house, whether that be hitting the phones, and that was kind of a fun way to keep you going for the day. So that is the why behind it. But at the end of the day, the big thing for sure is to build that rapport. And what the beauty behind the buyer consultation is that you customize it to who you are as a real estate agent, and you base it on your client. So if you have like this perfect setup and you kind of already know the docs you have, but this client maybe has purchased multiple homes and they just want to meet you to build that trust, you want to build that connection. Your whys are a little differently on this one. However, you don't want to go over the basic 101 stuff. Like you don't want to sound like too rookie if this person's already kind of gone over it. But if it's a first-time home buyer, I can't skip all those important basic steps because it's the first time they purchase a home. So we all kind of have our client avatar. If you haven't used one of our 30-day momentum planners, one of the third sheet in says, who is your client avatar? If I were to select my client avatar, it would be a first-time home buyer because the excitement, I love to informing them of the steps. And that is my buyer consultations be very heavily on those particular clients. If mine are investors, if you meet with investors, you kind of have to have a different presentation in a sense on why you should hire me, why you should utilize my services, and how I stand out. We don't give the buyer appointment, in my opinion, enough credit like we do the listing appointment. Sometimes the listing appointment, people have all the bells and whistles. They got a listing packet, they got this, they got that, they got presentation. They look super dapper when they go to the appointment. But the buyer one, it's almost like, I'm just going to build rapport through the phone, send them some homes, and kind of maybe meet with them when I first show the house. But it's quite the contrary. You want to really have a strong buyer consultation. If you've never hosted a buyer consultation, peer up with someone, host one, role plays with someone at home, a relative, someone who's going to give you good feedback and who's going to take the role play serious. I know sometimes we have people who just kind of like, if I was you with my husband, he wouldn't take it serious enough. So that if I do with my sister, we might actually do a role play. And we've even done like the ones where you like knock and they come to the office. If you're going to meet at a Starbucks, you always have to also customize your location and be ready for the location. There's certain things, if I'm in a very loud area, like a coffee shop, I might not want to overly go into, maybe like the lender step. If all of a sudden we start talking about credit, income, that's the lender part of it. But sometimes we do want to get some of that information in. And most of the time you would have covered some of that basic information when you first initially talked about it. So really find your spot, find your sweet spots and where you normally go and meet with the client, what restaurants you typically like to go to, what conference rooms you like to go to, and so on and so forth. So the location, I'm not going to dive into it a lot, but make a note right now. It's like, where are the ideal locations for meeting with my clients, right? So if I work in the Scottsdale branch where Michael is, Toby, where do you suggest if I were to bring that client here to meet with them, or what restaurant? I know she recommends maybe the restaurant downstairs. If I were in a whole opposite side of town and I'm not really close to the office, maybe there's a Panera Bread that I like because they're so isolated. They're kind of in the corner. I can buy my client one of those fun energy drinks like they came out with or whatever the case is. And it doesn't feel so pressured to purchase something, right? So that's something that I would personally do. Or here, there's a really nice Kneaders little restaurant, very cafe-like. And that would be the location. So write down, where would I ideally want to meet with your clients based on where they are, where I'm at, and what's most convenient. And I'm also taking my surroundings into consideration because of the intimacy of the conversation we're having. So now we're going to go into the buyer presentation. What is the buyer presentation and why am I doing it? So essentially at this meeting, you would discuss the home buying process. Like Michael said, you know, kind of, I want to build that connection as well. So overall, you're going to go over the buying process based on that particular audience, analyze and explain the current market conditions, and show your client the types of homes they expect to see. So building that home search and pulling up the MLS so that you're really raw and organic about the truth about what's out there. So especially for first-time home buyers, you're like, I can buy a house at $350,000, $400,000. It's a lot of money, and it's a high mortgage payment. But nowadays, if you search the MLS, there's a very small amount. So I would be very honest and pull it up. So that isn't a strategy some agents do use, because then they're going to be like, the homes you're sending me aren't quite what I'm looking for. So the more honest and transparent you are about what the market is, the more they connect with you and trust you and show that you know what you're doing in a sense. So this is the critical meeting that sets the expectations for the entire experience. So if you're representing me as my buyer's agent, this is the step one of how it's going to go going forward, especially when it comes down to communication. So you also have the opportunity to end up going into a buyer broker agreement, which I'll dive deep at the very end. And last but not least, you want to communicate the expectations, like what money do you want to have up front, the prequal, all of those important things that they really should and have to have ready prior to you showing them homes. Some people don't understand they have to pay for an inspection every time they end up going under contract, and if they cancel, they don't get a refund or anything. So just little things like that you really want to kind of communicate with them. So first thing first is, when I meet with my client, I want to perfect the home search. So the home search is going to be, what is your dream home? Go back to your notes. Like Adam said, did they listen to me? This would be that moment where you want to reiterate, kind of revisit some of these things. And also, a lot of the times, a fun little fact is, clients sometimes choose houses that they did not actually ideally share with you, or what was their ideal home. My favorite story is the one David Roney, our designated broker, shared, which is like, I was there's no way I'm buying a house without a fireplace, right? I'm adamant I'm going to have a fireplace. He ended up buying a house without a fireplace. I had a dear friend of mine who ended up when I sat down with her, we did her perfect home search, and I for sure am guilty. I set the clients in that exact perimeter of what they said. I don't stretch how far. I mean, this is what I do, right? So this is exactly what they wanted. She said, absolutely no HOA, and it absolutely has to have a pool, and it absolutely has to fall in this. It was like a square of from what avenue to what street she would be willing to go to, right? That's the home search I ended up putting her on. Long story short, she ended up buying a house with an HOA, no pool, and outside of the square she was in. So always kind of twist your spice. They're hiring you as the expert to help them perfect and know the dream home. Right now, if I'm buying a house with 400 grand in today's market in the city of in the county of Maricopa, the average price point is in the 5s, almost 6. So I'm not quite going to get that unicorn, right? And a lot of the times that's where we end up falling in a bit of a trap, is that we don't find that unicorn because the expectations weren't really communicated well, and we didn't really show too many examples. So again, just like when we show listing appointment, we pull comps, right? When you do the buyer appointment, you want to pull out the houses that are in that range, what they look like, what they kind of come with in today's market. So perfect that home search. But before we leave the perfect the home search, anything that I missed, Vanity, Adam, or Ivan, or Michael, that you want to add to this particular one?
No, I can't think of anything right now. You did great.
Perfect. All right. So step one, perfect that home search when you meet with your buyer, right? So this is a little example of a sheet. Another fun one, I think when you get your script booklet, there's a picture of a house and how many bedrooms, but this is kind of a general one that one of the agents here had shared with me years ago, and I still love it to this day. And it was just like location, price range, and then I get my little paper and I put it in the MLS or I put it in the CRM Sync or KV Core to perfect and do their home search. You can always do multiple home searches, so this is their ideal one. This is the one I suggest, and maybe it's a little bit more on the outskirts. And I personally send those separately because I don't want to kind of catch them off guard that it's completely different from what they were asking for. So step one, perfect your home search. Step two, before we go in depth about the actual like beautiful PowerPoint, is getting to know your client. There's this fun little form that you can get with Kelly or customize your own. As you stay in the industry for years and years, you're going to have repeat clients. You're going to have people where your business is all referrals. And I think at one point you're all going to get there. And that's the best part about it. There's agents who are top agents and all they do is get referrals based on the clients that they had helped the first few years. And they did such an exceptional job that they're always the realtor at the top of their client's mind, because the realtor always stays at the top of their mind versus it be through social media, versus it be through farming, birthday cards, anniversaries. There's agents who say they invite me to like their kids getting baptized, their birthday parties. It's like, I want to be that agent, right? So you have to ask yourself, how do I do that? You can pay a lot of money for people to tell you how to do it, but there's really no secret to it. The more information you find out about your client, the better. So this little document alone kind of gives you a gist of it. One, you're going to know their current mailing address, right? Because you helped them buy the house. Two, their spouse information, their birthdays, their children's birthday, their wedding anniversary. And you can have them fill out this form like, hey, if you don't mind filling out this form. Or two, you can fill out as you communicate with them organically. Like if I meet Vanity and her husband and we're showing houses, right there, I'd be like, well, when's your birthday? Or when did you guys get married? And then I'm going to kind of take a note so I can go back and save these special dates for them. When it comes down to their favorite restaurant, their favorite type of alcoholic drink, maybe they don't drink. There's certain things you want to kind of really know so that you can give them gifts at the end throughout the year, and whatever is applicable. If they have dogs, if they have cats, they're big pet parents. That's where you start connecting with them. So if I'm sitting down and I'm designing your perfect home, tell me about who lives in the house, including the pets and the gerbils and the hamsters, and name it, right? And then that's where you're connecting with them, and the house is customized to everyone who's going to live in the home. So that's where I would put almost in the favorites. If they have kids, if they have a favorite character, and you can get them something in that theme when it's their birthday, and it goes on and on. So this is kind of getting to know your client, not just for the moment and not just for when you're helping them in the buying process, but past the sold process. You want to keep engagement with them. Another example, David sent like an Easter card to all his clients every Easter, and these are like years, and David's been in the industry for 20 years. So he kind of does that kind of concept. Or Alan would do pies. He would give all his clients Thanksgiving pies a week or during the week of Thanksgiving. And the pie day was a bit like intense. Like his clients knew they were getting a pie. It was a Costco pie, and they would come and they would get their pie, communicate. And I remember he would end up getting some leads out of it. And I have a friend who's selling or wanting to buy, and he would get referral business out of it. But one of the important things too is in the bottom, the preferences, where it says what's your preferred communication. You want to know what the preferred communication is to the decision makers, because when it comes down to signing, calling, communicating information, you might be a huge emailer and it's like, well, I'm going to communicate, I'm going to send you everything, and you have been, but they never see it. They're like, man, this realtor doesn't communicate at all. And it actually comes down to the fact that they just don't read their emails. It's not you and it's not them. It's just that's how their perspective is, and they're not wrong, because you never really confirm their preferred communication. So you do have to adapt to that client. It gets to the point where people have to adapt to you, right? Because you're like that go-to high demand person. But most of the times in client services, anytime we service a client, we need to adapt to their preferences, and how they communicate is one of the important things that you have to know. And then of course, method of contact. You prefer, how often? I work a lot, so I don't like, I don't need you daily communication, just once a week, especially if I'm not looking to buy for another 60 days, whatever the case is. And then I'm going to end up poking at this person maybe a different way. Like November newsletter just came out, message Kelly if you want a little copy, you can send it that way, and just some communication. But when it comes down to before just seeing houses, showing houses, going under contract, getting documents signed, those are the things you really have to know on what's the best way to reach you, what times are the best way to reach you, and so on and so forth. So this is a fun little document as well. I'm going to scan this to Kelly and get a customized one, just a generic one. But this was one that I would personally use when I was in Alan's team that an agent had recommended. I was like in love with it. I think she ended up paying some coach, and he basically suggested all of this stuff. And that's where it comes down to keeping in communication with their client. So those are the first few things. Normally the icebreaker when you first meet with them, this is the first few minutes. This could take a long time in your consultation process. But if you don't have anything, like at all, I don't got nothing, this is like, I'm just kind of winging it. Those are the two things: perfect the home search and really get to know the client and build that trust. Easy breezy. But you do have other things you can do. So now it's time to present to your client, utilizing a PowerPoint presentation, a Canva presentation like I'm doing now, which is just here on Canva. It's like the Microsoft PowerPoint, but Canva, which is free. Or you can utilize buyer guides. So the buyer guides are the ones that you get from Kelly, and they have all the information, including your ideal house, including a few other documents that we'll be discussing, and it's all in here. So it's like, I'm not going to do anything because I have to build my Canva, I got to build my PowerPoint, I got to do all this. And you spend endless hours, weeks, months doing it. It's just, you already have a presentation, and it's this one right here. Just learn how to use it. So that's one of them. But I'm going to go ahead and show you an actual PowerPoint presentation, which is the one that Alan would share with his clients. Sorry, let me go back to little Zoom things like pop up everywhere and you can't click on anything. All right, here it is. So this is you guys can see my screen okay? Thumbs up.
Yes.
You can see my screen okay, Adam?
Yes.
All right. All right, so this is Alan's buyer presentation. So when he meets with a client, especially first time, he wants to kind of showcase what makes him different from other real estate agents and why it's important to have a buyer's agent. So this is the PowerPoint that he had, and he would call it the VIP buyer system. So Adam, I'm looking forward to seeing you on Friday at 2 p.m. I'm going to kind of go over my VIP buyer system in great length and perfect that home search with you and your wife. Simple, easy breezy. So now we're going to go, I'm not going to go into each slide, but he's basically just showing the differences. What's the difference between a buyer's agent and a seller's agent, and why it's important to have a buyer's agent, and what's in it, like what's the difference? Because this would kind of be talking to a client who is most likely a first-time home buyer, and I would maybe have a separate one if I were to deal with a different client. And then the benefits of having a buyer's agent, and you can see all the little check marks from they have your interest at all times. I have full fiduciary duties to you as the buyer. And you kind of go through each bullet point or the applicable ones that are going to stand out to them. As your buyer's agent, I also have a team. I have a transaction coordinator. I have a broker with over 20 years of experience. And you start going into all of these things, including the lender who's going to be part of the transaction if you've already kind of communicated that part, or I'll find you a lender, I'll find you all the partners that are needed in the escrow, home warranty, home insurance, name it. We're going to go through all those, right? So now you kind of go over like step 1, step 2 into the buying process. So just a little overview. This, by the way, is in the buyer toolbox that you all have access to, and it is right here, which is called VIP buyer presentation, and it's Alan's one. So if you want to kind of look at it, dive into it, that's where it's at. And at the end, he offers kind of an exclusive agreement. He used to offer this thing where it was like, if you don't love your house, I will sell it for free. If you want to know what that pitch was all about, ask him the details on how it worked for him. But that's pretty much the gist of his buyer presentation. And in the very last slide, he went over all the things that made him different than the agents out there and why you should hire me as your buyer's agent. So that's one example. There's an agent in the brokerage who used that as inspiration to make her own PowerPoint presentation, which is this one right here. And she goes over, like, the differences. She kind of minimized it. She kind of put her contact information, the benefits of a buyer agent, and how the team's going to help you as the buyer. And pretty much it's just her own twist to it. I wanted to kind of share that one because sometimes the other one's like, I don't know. I want to kind of customize it a little bit to me more. And that's kind of how this works. So that's the second example. And last but not least, you guys all have that buyer packet that Kelly at Best Homes Title Agency, Magnus Title prints out for you, which is this one. This is going to be that booklet. It's a home buying buyer packet. And not only that, it has a copy of a contract. It has a copy of the buyer advisory and a whole bunch of other ones that you can kind of tab. If the home inspection is really important, that's a tab you can really just pull up and kind of go over and perfect it. In this particular folder as well, there's also documents that you can have that you want to review, as in the home buying process, kind of the full overview of it. So that's something I would probably add to my buyer presentation if I were to kind of customize this one. I think the only thing slightly missing would be going over that swirl of how it works. And the reason it's not on here is typically because that's verbally shared after he would do it. This is why you should hire me type of slide. So there is the buyer presentation and buyer folder. So I do kind of suggest putting something together, maybe starting by just writing off what's important for you and how it is you. You know, it needs to be you and feeds off to you and how you're going to present to your buyers. And always customize based on who your audience is, of course. Another thing that we do suggest is to have an overview of the market, especially during these times. All the buyers are required to sign a market conditions. However, it's in the buyer advisory. You know, as agents, as a brokerage, just in the industry, the market conditions change and fluctuate. So there's a whole form for that, but more really so to review the market. What are the trends? What's happening? Tell me about it. And that kind of goes back to that big trust feature, goes back to, do they know what they're talking about? You know, those were some big things that we discussed in the beginning on why I want to go to this appointment and why I should host this appointment. And the word trust and whether or not I know what I'm doing were two things that we highly discussed. And you talking about the market, especially pertaining to the area. I think an opportunity that I clearly learned the hard way recently was that I don't know like the average of all the neighborhoods that they're hypothetically looking at. So it's someone who's like, I'm open to East Valley, West Valley, Chandler, Scottsdale. And it's like, whoa, you know, and that's kind of where it really honed in on get a gist of listen where they were looking and look up stuff, the schools, the maybe things that are coming to that particular, more jobs, more companies on that could be good for them or that could be a bad thing. There's this huge warehouse of a thing coming, you know, maybe the more you know, sometimes the more of a specialist you can find about the area that they're wanting to buy in. So that is just kind of a little fun tidbit about that. But Kelly just recently offered this particular market overview up to September, and it gives you some fun stats to share. And this is something you can slide into that buyer presentation or have a printout to share with your client when you meet with them in person. If they are new to buying in Arizona, share the differences. There are differences state by state. This is also a great opportunity for you to talk about the financing, talk about the home search, how you're going to help negotiate, how the closing process works here, how the inspection process works here, how long is my inspection period is, and so on and so forth. So that would be kind of some just bullet points of some of the stuff that you want to discuss. This little sheet was kind of fun. I think we don't talk about it enough with some of our clients. Is there are some client instructions, as in, if you see an open house, let me know, call, text me, or email me. They never want to be unrepresented. And same thing when they go to a new build. In the event you are starting to look into new builds, talk about new builds. Are you open to new builds? Because we've had so many stories where clients are looking, you're out there, and then all of a sudden on a random weekend, they go into a new build, and those guys are like hawks. They take them right away, and your client didn't know that they needed to say that they had a real estate agent, or that they weren't signed or anything. So the other agent just kind of took over. So as far as open houses and new builds, talk about those things so that they ensure that they call and communicate with you. Same thing with for sale by owners. We've had times where people want to buy a for sale by owner, but they're not paying a commission. So you kind of have to call them in advance and see if you can work something out. But it's always, you want to do what's the best for your client. And sometimes in one of these unique situations, you can end up losing the client because they weren't really aware or informed of how to reach you or what to do in the event. They decided just out of just thin air that I'm going to go buy a new build today. So this was a fun little client instructions, things to remember that this particularly you can print out and give to your client. Like, I'm gonna leave you some homework. And I always say the buyer advisory. I was like, this one we're gonna sign. You can sign it now, but we're gonna sign it when you go under contract. But I would suggest taking a look at it in depth, because they have a lot of things that they themselves have to look up. Like if there's any felons in the neighborhood, the crime rate, that's all their responsibility, not you as a real estate agent. So that's just some little homework, and all the links are on there. And that also applies to land, especially with land. So that would be a homework assignment. And then just a little fun little tip card: in the event you come across open houses, for sale by owners, or new builds, call me ASAP or text. This particular one was kind of highlighted. Make sure to reach out to me. So there's some client instructions. And then the buyer checklist, just some of the reminders of things that you have to do, getting to know you, home buying process. If you have any forms that you want to sign at that moment, you would have them, and things you want to remember to talk about, such as inspections, all of that fun jazz. But that's kind of a little buyer checklist. And then this is where the commitment comes into case. So now we started with, let's design my house, my ideal dream house. Put them in like expectations and put them down, here on earth on what that price point I'm looking at is probably going to get me, and what I'm going to do as an agent to help find that house. And then 2, I'm going to go over, some little things, get to know my client a little bit more. 3, I'm going to go into why you should hire me as a buyer's agent. And then I went into what we're doing now. So we're going to kind of end up with, this is everything I did for you that we share in the buyer. That's how I stand out. So let's get something in writing. So there's 2 forms you can use out there. One, there's a generic buyer broker exclusive employment agreement. You know how in the LP Mama script it says, have you signed anything? Are you committed to an agent? Most of the time, buyer's agents do not have their clients sign any type of employment agreement. If you want to kind of hop on and discuss this in depth, I would highly suggest hopping on tomorrow's mastermind, so that it becomes kind of a group forum on the pros and cons behind this. But you can have them sign this, and there's even some fees you can associate it with. But print this out, read it in full depth, and know how to use it, because sometimes it does come in handy. Alan's was my favorite because it was kind of like I felt like to sign something, but it wasn't this scary form. And it really reiterated why you want to hire me as your buyer's agent. So it's a VIP buyer's loyalty agreement. So as your buyer's specialist, we, because we're a team, will secure the best financing, provide you regular updates, arrange private showings, discuss the best strategy. So everything that was shared in his PowerPoint, he bullet pointed in the top. And as a bonus for working with me, I'm going to help negotiate a free the home warranty where the seller pays for it. We have that cancellation guarantee, which is kind of like basically during the inspection period. It's just, again, just how it was worded. And he had that one bonus, number 3, where if you don't like your house, I'll sell it for free within the next 2 years, basically. And again, poke at him on why that worked for him. And that's pretty much, it. And he would have like a transaction fee that he would, and then he would say like, just but for you, I'm gonna do it for free today. And that was kind of a little pitch in here, but essentially this is kind of his form. He put everything that he does as an agent off his PowerPoint, off this commitment for I'm going to provide, private showings. I'm going to negotiate. It's just, again, things we do naturally as a real estate agent. Buyers don't 100% know, especially as buyer's agents. So you want to inform them and communicate to them everything that you will be doing, because you guys do a lot, and you want to put it in writing. So that was kind of a twist to his buyer broker agreement in a format of a VIP form. This doesn't hold him to anything like this one does. So that is where you want to learn how this works and why it works, and we can go over it. And that's like a whole class. I think David should teach that one. But that is that one buyer broker exclusive agreement. It's very important you know how to use that. No different than like a listing agreement. So a challenge to leave you off for today is kind of one, to visit besthomesacademy.com for additional buyer consultation info. Alan has a few classes that I personally actually revisited not too long ago, and I just put my AirPods, and I literally do it here in the office. I'll put it on and I'll start hearing stuff. So kind of go in there and hear some of that more information. And then 2, I would highly suggest having 10 buyer folders with your material printed and ready. We have folders here at the office. You can buy them at the 99-cent store. You can put them in nicer ones, but I just like traditional folders, and we put all the information that we want the buyers to leave with. So for me as a client, if you were to really get to know me in person, you would know I'd probably feel more comfortable if I had papers. If you end up learning that these people are super like, I want everything on my tablet, on my phone, sending them copies, but always having something ready for them. So have 10 buyer folders with your material printed and ready for appointments. Like you're ready. Tuck docs from them in the buyer's guide along with 5 cards. Never forget to ask for referrals. So at the end of the buyer consultation, you're going to wow them and impress them and say, by any chance, do you happen to know of anyone who's looking now? Well, anyone else is looking to buy or sell, even if they just give you someone who's way further down the road, and get their information. So in here, in that little folder, tuck in additional miscellaneous docs, 5 business cards, and take something that you do want them to have signed, such as the VIP guide or the buyer broker exclusive, right? And then send things electronically. If you are going to do some of these in Zoom, you want to make sure to have them ready so it's presented. So practice one on Zoom and practice one in person, because you want them to feel just as lively and fun and interactive and not boring, because some of the stuff that you will be reviewing with them, depending on the audience, if I have kids playing everywhere or my dog's barking, it's just, you want to really adapt to that Zoom life, right? And we all know how to adapt to it. We've all learned it. You've seen multiple instructors, and now you have to present yours, and you have to learn how to do it on your end, so that in turn, that buyer presentation really resonates with them, especially for out-of-state buyers. People from Canada are not going to come all the way over here to go to your buyer appointment, right? When I come, I'm intentionally going to want to see houses, and I'm serious. But like we said in the beginning, we need to build that trust, and we need to put a face to a voice. So let's meet via Zoom or Google Meet. If you have Zoom and you don't have the paid account, it only allows up to 40 minutes. So you can end up subscribing to Zoom, but I personally would suggest just using Gmail, Google Meet, and that's kind of an unlimited, and you can record it as well. So I would highly suggest learning how to use that, learning how to record things, so that in turn you can send it to the other person if one of the decision makers wasn't able to make it. But that's it for today, guys. Any questions or anything you want to kind of dive into a little bit more, since I kind of like trailed along? Miss Vanity, you're good. Adam, Ivan.
I think I'm good.
How about you, Adam? You ready to book some appointments and meet people in person?
Hey, you know what?
That's okay.
Yes.
I did want to say something. If there was like a few new agents on here, something that I discovered a few weeks ago, call night. I've never role played, and I suck at role playing. So I would start early with role playing with someone. I don't know, it just comes naturally when I speak to people. I haven't had that issue, like, talking to certain leads and clients, but when it came to like just role playing, I was horrible.
Yeah, well, you gotta get in character, man. You gotta get in character and make a whole facade as in like I'm this person. And it doesn't. Sometimes the other person can make it a little hard. I try to like, don't be hard on me. Just make make it a little easy. But all right. But yes, highly suggest role playing. Come a little beforehand. George is doing a call night tomorrow, Wednesday, and it's going to be at the Scottsdale office. So chime in, you guys, to the Scottsdale office and do some role playing with Vanity.
No.
All right, guys. Well, I'll leave you off to your busy morning. Thank you so much for attending today's overview. I hope this was helpful. And kind of just going back to the challenge, pre-build those buyer consultations so that you're always ready. You don't want to kind of react when you actually finally book one and then it's like, oh shoot, I should have done this, I should have done that. And it also kind of helps create some accountability, and you just see these folders like, man, I need to book some appointments to meet with people. And everyone who's looking to buy and sell, even if most of them are far out, so interest rates right now, those are going to change. We have to kind of educate and help people so that they are home buyers and they move into their home, especially for all those renters out there. But thank you, Vanity, Ivan, Adam, and Michael for attending, and anyone's watching on Facebook, and the Scottsdale crew was kind of watching. So thank you for your time. And tomorrow we will be hosting a workshop on Op City hosted by our very own Eddie, who has, I feel like, overcome some of the Op City challenges and obstacles that kind of need to help get kind of talked about, so you can learn more about how to do that. But thanks again, and we'll talk to you all soon.
Bye. Have a good day.